You know, not too many generations ago, you still had a family member that was on a farm, so you still had that connection. But we've lost that connection, so it's like retying back to the consumer, to the field.
I want you to think about this for a moment. Imagine the last dinner party you threw, just say for 3 guests. That's what our competitors are doing on each Nickel City Chef, except they have to accomplish their task in an hour. So break this down. You've got 60 minutes, 3 dishes. If each dish has, say, 20 steps, which would probably be average, our competitors have 3 minutes to accomplish each task. And if they make a mistake, everyone knows it. It's the pressure of the event, it's the competitiveness of the event, and it's just the pleasure of watching that level of artistry in that particular context that makes me excited about the show and was the reason that I was thrilled to be part of it.
When I first heard about Nickel City Chef, my reaction was, there's no way this is going to work. It's going to be a flop, it's going to be a failure. You can't do something like this in Buffalo. It sounded far too ambitious. I was skeptical that people would pay to come and see a culinary battle, although I knew that people had been fans of the Iron Chef type format, certainly watching it on their televisions for a long time. Well, fortunately, I was completely wrong. In retrospect, I grossly underestimated the eagerness of the willingness of people to get out and watch chefs work and smell and see food that they were never going to be able to taste. They do it. They love it. I don't know why.
Nickel City Chef is a ongoing cooking competition series here in Western New York. The competition takes place in a single hour. It pits 2 chefs against one another who are each required to complete 3 dishes within an hour featuring a secret ingredient. And then those dishes are presented to a panel of judges. Our panel of judges rotates. Sometimes it is made up of Western New York's food elite. Other times we have guest judges in from out of town who are food writers or food critics in other towns. Nickel City Chef takes place at Artisan Kitchens Baths in the stunning Loft showroom they have located there. The showroom is home to 2 competition kitchens. They're state-of-the-art kitchens. They're located side by side, filled with the best equipment, the best countertops, and fantastic sort of maneuvering space. The 4 Nickel City chefs include J.J. Richard from Torches. He and his brother and his wife operate this restaurant in Kenmore, New York. And what's really interesting about Torches is that they take food that's very approachable and comforting, food that we're all familiar with, and they add their own twist and personality to it. And J.J. Richard is in no shortage of personality. Adam Getz of Sample Restaurant was really the second chef to agree to participate in Nickel City Chef. Adam really presents food thoughtfully with intellectual decision-making and passion, as well as tremendous technical expertise. Every season, he just brings the level up one more notch. It's really amazing to see how much he can complete in an hour. What he and his sous chef, James Gerke, are really able to achieve in an hour is pretty unbelievable. We also have on board Krista Van Wagner. Very pleased to have a female chef involved. In addition to that, Krista brings a real Caribbean flavor. She has a French background. Her skills are classic French culinary skills, but her flavor is really Caribbean, and she really does a fantastic job of not only bringing that flavor profile to the competition, but also bringing her really big heart and her sense of good sportsmanship, which really is unparalleled. This year we had the opportunity to add a new chef, Brian Meadis from Bacchus Restaurant, located in downtown Buffalo, a really great restaurant for pairing wine with food. Brian really brings a fabulous sort of character and personality to the program. In 2008, when I realized that the enthusiasm and almost compelling nature of telling the stories of these chefs and farmers in person to people was really the key to helping people understand just how broad and deep our agricultural and culinary bounty were here in Western New York, I decided that the best thing to do was to start a business that really focused on producing events primarily towards uniting and profiling these sorts of talents here to the general public.
Nickel City Chef is a really, really terrific way to gather people in the city who may or may not be, die-hard foodies, but are interested in good food and want to try the best that Buffalo has to offer. As people who live here, as farmers, as chefs who have to work with the product that's brought into your kitchens, I think it's a great way to assemble all of that and celebrate it on 3 courses on 3 different plates.
If it had to have a mission statement, it's about bringing the locally grown products to the local chefs and educating people in the process about all these great things that are at our disposal here in Western New York. As a Nickel City chef, my mission statement is just to show up and do the absolute nastiest food I can do in the least amount of time possible, without stabbing or burning my brother in the process.
As a local restaurant owner and a local chef, I was born and raised here and always plied my trade here in Western New York. Nickel City Chef is really a great opportunity for us to push ourselves. Nobody's going to do it for us.
We have these talented chefs here. They're doing the right thing with the food and the ingredients, and it kind of makes it more on a conscious level. Like, hey, look, we're doing something good for the people that are coming into our restaurants and enjoying the meals.
Food can be really entertaining, and with the Food Network and everything that's going on right now, people want to know the chef, know his personality, get to talking to him a little bit. I feel like years ago it was just a guy behind a closed swinging door with a dirty apron on. Things have changed a lot, and the chef's personality and the way that he is and how it transmits to the food tells a story, and I think people are really interested to hear that story. The Buffalo food scene is a pretty tight-knit group of people, and we have a lot of truly excellent restaurants and really outstanding chefs. I think that a lot of times, people get down on us for the chicken wing thing, the beef on weck thing. We have so much more to offer, and that's why I really love this project, because it brings the world-class food and talent that we have here in this town and the locally owned restaurants where people are, invested in it personally, and they bring it to a maximum every day, and that's what's really exciting about Nickel City. It's bringing all of that stuff forward. And we're getting away from the stigma of deep-fried chicken wings.
Hi, I'm Bert Gambini, and we just wrapped up with the first show of season 3. Today's secret ingredient, 3 different varieties of apples. Big thanks to Dan Tower Farms in Youngstown for providing the secret ingredient and really giving our chefs something great to work with today. Watching the creativity today, this was especially fun. Both competitors, Jennifer Boy from the Mansion on Delaware and Krista Von Wagner from Curly's, component-wise and in terms of creativity, both of them just really threw it down today. It was a pleasure watching them work and see what they presented for the judges.
Hello, my name is Krista Van Wagner from Curly's Bar and Grill and Banquet Center. Today we are so fortunate to work with these beautiful Crispin and Macintosh apples. When creating the menu, I was just so excited that they gave me the strength of the beautiful Crispin where I could saute it, and I also love the fact that the Macintosh just cook right down. And I used both in my ingredients. Chutney, it had a little body to it, and then it had the bite. So the apples were just so wonderful to work with. Wonderful.
My name is Alan Bedenko. I write food reviews for the Buffalo Spree, and I write a blog at wnymedia.net. I've been fortunate enough to judge for all 3 seasons. As a judge, I look for 3 things in particular. I look obviously for flavor first, I look at texture second, and then I look to see how well the secret ingredient is integrated into the overall dish.
First course today we did a saffron apple poached Parisienne, and with a bit of apple cider and a Riesling, and I also made some apple croutons, and I poached those with saffron as well, and I caramelized them, topped them with an apple slaw, done in an apple cider, honey vinaigrette, nice and crisp. And then I finished that with skate wing, just to lighten it up a bit, chive beurre blanc we finished it off with.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Boy. I'm the executive chef of the Mansion on Delaware Avenue. When I saw the apples, I thought the possibilities are endless. Our first course consisted of an apple salad, which was matchstick apples with some pomegranate manchego cheese, baby arugula, and a rosemary grainy mustard and apple vinaigrette. We also did a sauerkraut and apple pierogi. that sat on a bed of apples and onions.
Our second course today was duck. It was a wild Arkansas mallard duck that my husband went out and actually shot. I was worried so much today about the buckshot in it, but we got through it just fine. We did a really nice Calvados apple cider duck glace for the sauce and served it with a sweet potato, foie gras, and crispin apple hash. And then just for a little bit of tartness, I did an apple cider and cranberry relish, and just together it's happened on the plate.
Our second course consisted of a bacon-wrapped antelope. It was a boneless leg of antelope that we wrapped in local bacon from Spars. We served that on a potato and apple pancake. We did bacon, apple, and red pepper marmalade on top, and a cider demi-glace.
Our third course this evening was one of my favorites because I love having fun. I have the most unbelievable cheese that I had the opportunity to work with. It was from Vermont Butter and Cheese, and it was a hand-ladled, ash-ripened goat's cheese, bone bush, which means beautiful mouthful. And with that, I served a chutney done with a bit of ginger. Of course, I used the Max and I used the Crispins and cherries, done with a bit of vinegar and then some brown sugar. The chutney was awesome, and I finished it off with apple cake.
Our third course was an apple study, a dessert apple study, and we did apple toffee truffles. We did an apple eggnog with a cinnamon mascarpone, and we also did an apple and green tomato crisp, and that was topped with a cheddar streusel topping, almost a nice homey freeform apple pie feel.
Jennifer's dessert I thought was spectacular. It was very beautiful, really highlighting apple, as well as her antelope, which is something I'd never had before. That was really a treat and a super flavorful dish.
It's a cliche, but it's disappointing that Jennifer had to lose by, even if it was only by 1 point, because there really shouldn't have been any losers today. The dishes were so wonderfully executed and they were so delicious.
I can't give all the credit to Nickel City Chef itself, but I can definitely say that in the last 3 or 4 years, there has been a huge expansion of chefs who are willing to try something different, to basically say, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and if people come in here and like it, that's fine, but I'm going to be me. That's not something I really saw much of 4 or 5 years ago.
As a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America, I looked at my diploma as a plane ticket to anywhere I wanted to go in the world. And that's exactly what I did. One of the most wonderful opportunities that I really took advantage of when I was living in the islands was I was there at the dock with my fishermen. You can't get any better than that. Talk about, you know, from farm to the kitchen. I picked out my fish at Curly's Bar and Grill. Freshness is something that Kirk and I demand. It makes a difference. The look on the plate, the flavor, it just makes a difference when I know where I'm buying it from. And we are so fortunate to have the abundance of it right around us here in Western New York.
I think there's really been quite a renaissance in the last 5 years or so, both in restaurants as well as farmers and artisan food producers. Through the hard work of people like Krista, we've finally been able to bridge the gap between farmer food producers and chefs. So all of a sudden we're sort of in this great position of being able to have these unbelievably farm fresh great ingredients to use. And I think the result of this is there's a lot of new restaurants that are really sort of bringing these ingredients to the forefront. And I think we're really finally starting to develop really kind of a taste of the region. And at Shango we're just happy to be one of those restaurants.
Some of the best restaurants necessarily don't spend their money on advertising. They really depend on word of mouth and the product and the finished product doing all the talking for them. So this project's really helping kind of bridge that gap, and it's a nice way to introduce people to some of the best, greatest places to eat in town.
I've seen the local food movement grow and grow over the last 3 years. Specifically, I've noticed that when you continue to go back to a locally owned restaurant, you get to know the chefs and the staff, and you're treated to a much better experience than you would find in any other environment. They embrace you as a repeat customer. I believe this happens because you're developing personal relationships with the people that are investing in the local area. And by going back to those restaurants, you're giving back to them as well.
Hi, I'm Mike Andrzejewski from Csa Restaurant, one of the hosts for Nickel City Chef. Today's secret ingredient was tomatoes from H2 Grow Farms in Lewiston, a hydroponically, organically grown tomato, local product that's really hit the market and just a great thing to work with. Our contestants today were Nickel City Chef Brian Meadis from Bacchus Restaurant and Marianne Giordano from Creekside Restaurant in Williamsville, New York.
Wow, when I saw tomatoes, I said to myself, great. Tomatoes. I love tomatoes. And then I said to myself, oh my God, what am I going to do with tomatoes? There's so many things I can do with tomatoes. So it was kind of a battle of just trying to decide what to do. Went with my Mediterranean influences, and the tomatoes were beautiful. They had a great smell.
When I saw those tomatoes, I was surprised. And I kind of went for it. I went for a little bit technically difficult items. So.
Hi, my name is John Bordage, or Bordage Consulting. My process as a judge, I like to take in my mind and make it a blank canvas. I don't want to bias it in any way, but I almost like to stay blank until that plate shows up, and then I have my impressions. Those first impressions are always the freshest, strongest impressions of a dish.
I'm Don Salamone. I'm the corporate sous chef of Michael Mina Restaurant Group, based out of San Francisco. When I'm looking at the dishes that the competitors put out, I basically look for something that I would serve in my restaurant. Look for technique, proper execution, flavor, the appearance of the dish.
Hi, hello, my name is Matthew Maitro. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a chef of Crisp Catering. I'm also an owner of a company called Stove Monkeys, which is a food-focused t-shirt company for chefs and foodies. As a judge, I looked for the creativity, the use of the ingredient, and the technique of the ingredient.
First course, we did our consomme. I took those really nice vine-ripe tomatoes, pureed them into the raft that we use for our consomme. Did a crab and tomato dumpling, and also a little tomato grilled cheese sandwich.
So for our first course, I started with a Panzanella Salad, which is a Tuscan bread and tomato salad. I used a variety of tomatoes in that salad. Along with the vine-ripened tomatoes, I used some Kamato tomatoes, some baby Romas, and some cherry tomatoes. And I had a vinaigrette of a yellow tomato and balsamic vinaigrette. The yellow tomatoes were actually from my garden. I also had some Kalamata olives, cucumbers, and some toasted bread. I had taken a ciabatta loaf and diced it into cubes and tossed that with olive oil and salt and pepper, roasted it in the oven to get a little crunch in the salad, a little texture.
The second course was the bacon wrapped monkfish, stuffed with vine-ripe tomato confit and lobster with a little avocado, served over spinach and basil risotto.
For my second course today, I did a blue corn enchilada with a seafood filling, shrimp and sea scallops. I seared the sea scallops with some jalapeno, cilantro, onion, and lime juice. And then I tossed that with a little queso blanco cheese just to bind it a little bit. The blue corn enchiladas were actually blue corn crepes made from Native American blue corn. I served that with a tomato, roasted corn, and poblano salsa and an avocado lime puree. And on the side of that plate, I had a glass with a Bloody Maria to go with the Latino theme of the dish. The Bloody Maria was made with vine-ripened tomatoes, no tomato juice, just the vine-ripened tomatoes, and some horseradish that was also from my garden.
Third course, tomato tart tartane with a mascarpone ginger cream. We took those great vine-ripe tomatoes, substituted the typical apple in that dessert ingredient, used a nice flaky pastry crust underneath. We took our little non-stick tartlet molds, baked those off. That was finished with some mascarpone cheese, candied ginger, and lemon zest.
The third course kind of had a Spanish inspiration. I did a grass-fed Colorado boneless lamb loin, and I made a fennel rosemary crust for that. I roasted the fennel in the oven and ground that in a coffee mill and rubbed the lamb with the olive oil, salt, pepper, rosemary, and fennel. And that was served over a romesco sauce, which is a pulverized sauce of tomatoes, roasted red peppers, smoked paprika, and toasted almonds, and that's a Spanish preparation. On one side of the plate, I had grilled eggplant, tomato, manchego cheese, and basil bundle. The eggplant was grilled, and then the tomato was wrapped inside the eggplant. On the other side of the plate, we had a stuffed tomato that was stuffed with a salad of farro, fresh fava beans, walnuts, and feta cheese.
I don't know how good the stuff is going to look in here right now. Yeah, it's looking good. It was actually pretty awesome when my brother decided that he wanted to do the Nickel City. He, obviously asked me to be a sous chef, and just getting ready for the event, just kind of hammering out things in our kitchen and working together. And when it came time to actually do the event, it was pretty surprising how well it actually went, being outside of our own kitchen and in a different atmosphere in that. I think it's really coming into its own. I think the competitors are really taking the challengers seriously, and everybody's really stepping up their game and really showing the audience and everybody else in town what Buffalo's all about and how good of a food we can really prepare here. A lot of local chefs in town are really stepping up their game and really bringing a whole new light to the culinary scene in Buffalo here. I think that the farmers in this town are really actually taking the competition very seriously as well, and really trying to provide a great value and product, and really taking a step forward and providing local agriculture to the community. I mean, you walk into any food market around here now and everybody's got signs boasting, oh, grown from this farm, and the farmers are really taking it seriously, and I really think it's pretty awesome.
When I consider the local food producers and the local growers, I think one of the best things about Nickel City Chef is that we have an opportunity to bring them center stage. These are people who I think are often shadowed by the great culinary talent that is on display for Nickel City Chef. But here's an opportunity for us to inform our guests and really to inform our community that there is an agricultural bounty in Western New York, there are artisan food producers in Western New York that deserve wider recognition, and we do that with Nickel City Chef. We take these local growers, these local food producers, and we introduce them to people. And in the end, who benefits but the people who are introduced to them? It's a chance to just improve what you're doing in your own kitchens.
Hello, my name's Krista Glennie-Seishu. I'm the executive producer of Nickel City Chef and the founder of Feed Your Soul. Today, we're very excited to present our 15th challenge. It features challenging chef James Roberts of Park Country Club, located in Williamsville, New York, versus the undefeated Nickel City chef J.J. Richard of Torch's Restaurant. Today, both chefs had the opportunity to work with an amazing local ingredient, Flying Bison's craft beer.
Hello, I'm Tim Herzog from Flying Bison Brewing Company. Flying Bison provided the beer for today's battle beer. We did a Belgian double, which is a Trappist-style red ale with a lot of yeasty characteristics to it, and also our oatmeal stout, which has a deep coffee flavor and a nice creamy finish to it.
Beer as an ingredient was so awesome. It is a challenging ingredient in a lot of ways, but at the same time, a lot of fun. First course, we did basically a gnocchi, whole grain mustard gnocchi stuffed with beer brat. We sauteed that up, served it with a beer cheese fonduta, basically this really great fontina cheese from Italy. We basically emulsified that into some of the oatmeal stout, and then we did some sauteed garlic ramps, fresh, first of the year. And then we did a hop foam to kind of complement the whole thing with just a little bit of microgreens. The dish really came together nice, and I was super proud of it, and I think it was a good representation of beer.
I love beer, and for me, when I saw that was the ingredient, it's a really special moment. I love a lot of food with beer. For our first course, we had a compilation appetizer. We call it For Beer, By Beer, With Beer, and it is basically all of my favorite foods with beer. We did raw oyster, which is one of the quintessential seafood beer combinations. We did it with a mignonette, which is a classical sauce for oysters, but we used a beer vinegar. It was very nice. We actually froze that in liquid nitrogen and made little pearls because of the sphere as it freezes. So that was one component. There was a truffled pork crepinette, which is basically a sausage wrapped in caul fat. We studded it with a piece of foie gras down the center and used the T Meadow Farms pork. We did a classical mole negro with a chicken wing, being buffalo. And then the pork pastor taco, which is a great combination. It's pineapple, lime, onion, annatto, a little bit of beer, and that same pork in a little mini taco. And then the last, which was a surprise, is the onion soup. It came out fantastic. I thought all the components really went well, and I think that it was a shock to the judges that each component is individually detailed.
The second dish, just some good old-fashioned Richard Brother debauchery. This was the ultimate tailgate, and this is how we roll. And when we go to a Bills game or whatever, ask somebody. That's how we party. It was a 4-component dish. First component was a sandwich. You know, any tailgate has a sandwich, so we did a oatmeal stout gruyere, which is basically a puff pastry, which instead of using milk in the patty choux, we used beer. And then we did a beer braised short rib, topped it with mustard greens, and put a little Irish cheddar on there as well. And then, we put a little andouille sausage and Gruyere cheese over the top, so that was a sandwich. Second component was beer can chicken, but instead of using chicken, we used quail. And made up our own little fabrication device to kind of grill and smoke the hens with the beer inside of them. And then we did that over a little bit of baked beans. But instead of just putting baked beans on the plate, we stuffed the baked beans inside of a zucchini blossom and beer battered that. We did a little bit of macaroni and cheese, but instead of doing a macaroni and cheese sauce, we made a Welsh rarebit, which is a beer cheese soup, but we made it a little bit thicker and added the macaroni to that, and then baked the whole dish as a whole, and then added a little hot sauce at the end. Fourth component to our ultimate tailgate dish is cold beer. So we got the chainsaw out and we cut some mugs out of ice. Drilled a hole, bored it down in there, took a trip to the hardware store to fashion a handle together, and then at the last minute I personalized the glasses with a Dremel tool and put the initials of the judges on the glass. And I thought it was pretty fun, and you know what? It was playful, and it was the way that we would go about drinking cold beer to the nth degree.
For our second course, we took a little different approach on a traditional beer braised, and we modernized it a little bit. We call it beer braised redefined, so to speak. It is, we took the Kobe beef rib and we vacuum packaged it with some oatmeal stout, Flying Bison oatmeal stout, and sous vide in the low temperature circulation at 54 degrees Celsius for a certain amount of time until it was just perfectly cooked all the way through. The texture is perfect, and then we sear that, hot sear it, and serve it on top a bed of cooked barley, sauteed onions and mushrooms to kind of round out the braise, and some little baby vegetables, turnips, carrots, that sort of thing, to really complete what would be the beer braise, but in a different way, maybe kind of not deconstructed, but just, again, redefined.
For our third course, we wanted to do beer for the judges in a sweet way, and we didn't want the hops and the bitterness of the beer to overpower the dessert. So what we did was a porter pecan pie, my wife Cindy's recipe, for a bourbon pecan pie, but we omitted the bourbon and added some beer to it. Then we made an oatmeal stout ice cream, placed it on top, and then I made a double beer caramel and just kind of drizzled that over the top. We didn't put any out-of-season raspberries or any obligatory garnishes on there. It was just a nice pecan pie, and I was really happy with the way it came out.
As a final note to our menu, our third course was a sundae. I love the texture of nitrogen frozen ice cream, and it allows you to freeze alcohol to improve texture because of the temperature at which you're freezing it. We had a whimsical play on 2 beers and a shot, which is, a typical chef after work beverage. It is both beers from Flying Bison and whiskey accompaniments. So we did frozen Belgian double ice cream, or sorbet, just beer and sugar really. Froze that with the nitrogen. Did the oatmeal stout also on top of it. Then we had bourbon caramel, which we made with a little malted cream and bourbon and the sugar, and a bourbon whipped cream, which Rich's topping and whipped cream and in ISI foamed. And it was really 2 beers as you dug down. It was a little straw, but then as you got to the whipped cream and the caramel, it was the shot finishing. It is kind of a whimsical play on the sundae approach, and still very complex.
We've developed this waste culture in our country where people only, think they should only eat certain parts of an animal. We really need to get back to just, utilizing the whole animal, there's nothing that should really go to waste, and people really need to realize that. That's why I do what I do. You know, I'll take the snout, I'll take the tail, and make something delicious with it, and everything in between. There's plenty of products around here seasonally that you can incorporate into your menu and keep it creative and keep it fresh, and really focusing on the bounty we have here in Western New York.
You know, I grew up in a middle-class family, nothing to do with farming whatsoever. A couple of jobs that I had were construction and lumber yards, things like that, through putting myself through college and becoming a teacher. Having this as a side business has been just a fantastic experience for my family. It's awesome to know that we're producing the most nutritious, wholesome food that we can produce. We don't use any hormone or antibiotic or pesticides on the property. It just seems that dovetails so nicely with what's going on with the nation right now, buying local, nose-to-tail movements. That's not just happening here in Western New York, it's across the country, but it's just so great to be a part of that. We have heritage breed pork on pasture. We have been in business for about 7 years now. We are raising heritage breeds that are breeds that were brought over to the country back in the 1800s. When we first bought the farm, it had not been farmed in over 40 years. There was a need to reclaim some of the land. It was very, very thick with poison ivy and different weeds and vegetation. We decided that heritage breed pigs would be a good mix for the property. A smaller animal, easier to work with than beef. Our breeds here are primarily the Gloucestershire Old Spot and the Tamworth Hog. The numbers of the Gloucestershire Old Spot were down to just 2 hogs living in the U.S. in 1996, and right now we have about 300. We produce pork by the half and by the whole. We also do individual cuts and sell pork throughout Western New York in farmers markets, and we also sell pork at a few local restaurants. When you get feedback from awesome chefs like Chef Bruce and Chef Steve, you know, when they're producing prosciuttos and pancettas and they're raving about it, it just gives you just such a great feeling to know that your animals that you took so much time and so much energy to raise ended up in such caring hands that did such a fantastic job with them. It just gives the ultimate respect to the animal and to the process that we're trying to do.
Over the last 5 years, there's been a change. There seems to be more awareness of the consumer towards what they're putting on their plate. There seems to be a desire, too, to promote local and eat local for, let's say, economic reasons, too. But I think part of it boils down to why the changes occurred is some of these food scares that have occurred over the last 5 to 10 years. People are more concerned about where is things coming from, how is it being produced, and over that it's created a relationship between the producer and the consumer. And I think we lost that somewhere along the way. You know, not too many generations ago, you still had a family member that was on a farm, so you still had that connection. But we've lost that connection, so it's like retying back to the consumer, to the field. And people, I've always pondered this, that why do people like to garden in their backyard? There's something about that connection with the soil, and so this is a way to make that, let's say, a living connection with the grower and the consumer. I started farming back when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. Grew up on a farm. I graduated from Cornell University in '79. Started farming commercially, mainly corn, wheat, soybeans, hay. And then we had a few disastrous years in the '80s, and we went back to, let's say, our roots of starting to grow vegetables. We started with a roadside market and a U-pick operation. In 2011, we have a little over 200 CSA shares, and we supply fresh vegetables to approximately 9 restaurants in the local Buffalo area. The CSA model is a model where the consumer buys a share of the harvest from the farm. So once a week, product that is in season is packaged and put in a box, and so that the consumer will get the fresh vegetables and fruits that are in season that week. The Nickel City Chef has, I think, really opened the eyes to the consumer, to the foodie, of the different products that are available in Western New York. There are so many unique items, not just, let's say, vegetables, but fruit and other products, you know, dairy, wines, cheeses, those type of things. Milk products, you know, you don't think of some of those things as a consumer, but Nickel City Chef has allowed, because of their special ingredients, has allowed things to be brought more to the forefront. To me, it takes, when you see, let's say, a simple thing, let's say like potatoes, which was our item, and the unique things that the chef did with it, you as the person at home can say, oh, I never thought about doing that.
And as you can see from looking around the market here, there's almost every crop imaginable. We have a lot of good rich soils and temperate climates from the Great Lakes and the rivers. We have low elevations and a long growing season. We occasionally get hail and frost, but by and large, on our farm, for example, we grow everything from cherries, peaches, nectarines, grapes, apples, apricots, and tomatoes, potatoes, raspberries, blueberries, artichokes even, leeks, Swiss chard, pumpkins, a list I can't even keep track of myself. Some days I get so confused. People are becoming more and more alert and more aware that in fact there's legitimate reasons for local farmer market, producer markets especially, to be successful, eliminating the middleman. In our case, we can pick our peaches and our cherries or our tomatoes, we can pick them ripe rather than green ripe or hard ripe that you have to do for the supermarkets, or even worse when it's shipped halfway across the country. Well, people are finally realizing that there's all kinds of advantages of it. Stuff is fresher, has better nutrient value, it isn't laced with preservatives, it isn't varieties that are selected by a grower in California to survive a tractor-trailer trip across the country. There's probably 24 reasons why a tomato that was picked Friday afternoon on Tom Tower's farm is going to taste better on your salad at noontime on Saturday than one that was picked in Mexico and gassed in a tank truck or a boat and then held in a chain store warehouse for 5 or 6 days till it got just the right shade of red so they could pretend that it was a ripe tomato. Some of the better restaurants, actually many of them, recognize that if you're going to claim you're good, you got to be good. In other words, you can't make a promise if you don't deliver. And if you're going to charge somebody X number of dollars for a salad that tastes very good, it better taste very good. For a long time, the restaurant trade seemed to think that if you just priced it expensive, people would get sucked in to thinking it was good. But people in Buffalo are good eaters. They're very discreet. They're very, they have a fair amount of savvy and moxie, and they're not going to be fooled too much.
Hi, I'm Bert Gambini. I'm the co-host of Nickel City Chef. This was competition number 16 for season 3, and our secret ingredient was duck eggs from Painted Meadow Farms. And this really gave our competitors, I think, an interesting platform from which to work. Some of the most creative plates that I've seen in 3 seasons were composed during this afternoon's competition.
Hi, I'm Steve Gedra from Bistro Europa, and I was a judge today at Nickel City Chef, Zangi versus Getz.
Hello, I'm Adam Getz, Nickel City Chef and chef owner of Sample Restaurant in Allentown. Well, when we saw that the ingredient was going to be duck eggs, you know, the approach that we took was we wanted to showcase the ingredient as it's on its own, to showcase the richness of the yolk, to showcase the elasticity and the leavening of the egg white, and then we also wanted to be able to use it to make pasta, to do some meringues and to do some curds and some custards, and really wanted to show everybody that there's a lot more than you can do with an egg than just just bake a cake with it or scramble it.
Hello, my name is Louis Zangi. I'm the head chef at the Delaware on Delaware Avenue. For the first course, we did duck egg hors d'oeuvres. We did a classic deviled eggs with bacon and New York State super sharp cheddar. It was bacon and eggs. We did a Scotch egg with a beer braised bratwurst and a Bavarian sweet hot mustard. And we did a Bloody Mary with a beet pickled duck egg for our first course.
For our first course, we made a progression of the richness of the egg yolk. The first dish was a buttered asparagus with a little sherry vinegar reduction, and then a fried egg yolk, which we left very runny, where when you broke into it and you tasted everything, it was very reminiscent of a classic béarnaise sauce. After that, we made my version of bacon and eggs, and also a little nod to egg drop soup, where we poached the egg yolks. We blended them up, we put them in a syringe, and we put them in some whole butter, and then topped it off with crispy pork belly and a pig trotter, pig's feet jus, which was the broth for the egg drop soup. And then we ended that course with a traditional Ramos gin fizz, which is a citrus gin drink that's shaken with a tiny bit of cream and a little bit of the raw duck egg to really froth it up. It's a cocktail that you can drink and eat with a spoon.
Our second course was a duck egg baked en cocotte with duck confit, spinach, shiitake, mushrooms, and grilled ciabatta with a chicken liver pate.
For our second course, which was our entree, we did a spring ravioli. We really wanted to show how you could use the egg as a tool and not just as a particular ingredient. We made a very eggy pasta called Enchiladas with a raw egg yolk inside. We did a sauce Chiron, which is a hollandaise with roasted tomato. We did a sherry vinaigrette to show the emulsification qualities of the egg yolk. We also did a duck egg white tempura for some Alaskan king crab legs. Again, which showed how light everything was and how crispy those duck egg whites can really get in a batter. And we topped it off with a tomato concasse and pea shoot salad and a little roasted tomato.
Our final course was the classic floating islands, and I love floating islands. The dinosaur, nobody ever sees it anymore. It had classical creme anglaise, poached meringues, and a caramel cotton candy. I just really enjoyed the amount of guts it took to make such a dessert that people haven't seen in years, and the textures and flavors were something that I feel should stick around.
Our grand finale today was the dessert that we called Sunny Side Up Egg with Toast. We made a coconut meringue to showcase, again, how stable the duck egg whites are. We also made a pineapple curd, which we used to mimic the yolk of the egg. And then we made a biscotti, chocolate biscotti, which was definitely a stretch to get it done in 55 minutes, but it came out beautifully. And then we did a little cracked cocoa nib and some toasted coconut.
I've seen Nickel City Chef have a tremendous effect on Buffalo. It's allowing people from other areas outside of Western New York to respect Buffalo as a food destination. Everybody who has come in contact with Nickel City Chef has a much bigger appreciation for its mission and the local movement.
I've loved being witness to the Nickel City Chef series because, number one, it brings to light the fantastic talent we have in the area. There are so many of us that work the same hours, eat the same meal periods, try to visit other people's places that we don't really get to see one another that much. And it really showcases the people behind the scenes. There are so many hidden gems in Buffalo that if you ask any person, they have 3 or 4 different favorites. The focus on the chef is preliminary. Obviously, we want to show the raw public in a familiar format, which is the chef battle format, that we have these great cooks and that we're continuing to strive forward and make better food and present it to Buffalonians in a way that they can understand. And it really brings that to light. And I can't say how much this city has grown even in the last 3 years that this has been going on. You see chefs now know each other, we know what everybody's doing, we're communicating. The farm to table movement that is our original farm network in Buffalo from a century ago is now being reinvigorated to allow us with these great products. The farmers are on board, they know what we want, we know what their trials and tribulations are. It's a great symbiotic relationship that allows the diner to reap the rewards. I mean, it really is just, it's amazing to see.
You know, people come up to me after the show and go, wow, chef, I can't believe how much action there was in the kitchen and how food was flying everywhere and knives were going across product real quick and things were happening so fast. And 60 minutes is not a lot of time, especially to put together things that are so complex with so many different, elements and things that need to happen in a certain order. The energy and the work. I mean, if you look at the videos, you can see those facial expressions are real. The steam burns are real. The work, the physical work, and the mental aspect that go into cooking at that level in just 60 minutes is intense, and that's something that you can't experience unless you go to the show, and people really get excited, and you start rooting for whoever you want to win, and it's really intense though. 60 minutes, not a lot of time.
You can take anything that goes into Nickel City Chef, from the culinary aspects, the competitive aspects, to the time constraints. But I think in the end, the crucible that represents Nickel City Chef is community. It's about local. These are all local chefs. Our secret ingredient is grown locally or produced locally. And in the end, we have an event that is inherently about Western New York. This is an event that showcases another one of our community assets. You can talk about architecture, you can talk about the arts, you can talk about culture in Western New York, but I think whenever you discuss what this community offers, and offers as well as any other community, I think you have to add our culinary tradition and our food tradition as well.
I think one of the real shames of the restaurant business in Western New York is that people get locked into their favorites. They don't want to go to someplace else because it might be different. Well, I would like to challenge people to rethink that and to go out and do a little research, maybe online now. It's a lot easier. Find a place that you want to try where something different is happening. I think you'd be surprised at how many places there are right now in Western New York that are offering things that would, well, if not blow your mind, at least ruffle your feathers a little bit. So why not give it a shot?